Welcome to the Dazzling Chap, and for today's video we're sculpting and painting the Joker from Alan Moore's The Killing Joke.
All it takes is one bad day.
Welcome to the channel. This is a bit of a departure from the usual videos I make. I usually have the luxury of making something up, so you have no idea if they actually come out right or not. But with that safety net thrown out of the window, let's give this one a go. We start as always with an armature glue to corkboard with superglue, then we wrap it in foil to get the basic dimensions of the head right. Next we break up bits of clay and flatten them out, and smoosh them all over the thing until it looks like an unhealthy greyish potato. Then we draw out a cross for the centre line, and where the eyes will roughly sit. I used the back of a Stanley knife blade for this because I was already starting to have a mad panic about how this is going to work. Next we put a bit of clay on for the brow and the chin, and then slap a bit on for the nose. We're going from the comic book here, the best version of the Joker in my opinion, and he has a suitably cartoonish look. He's all skinny and pointy and with hard angles, so we're looking at multiple sources here to try and get it right. But the nose needs making thinner and pointier, and so does the chin. Most of the directions, to be honest, are about making this face thinner and pointier, so I'll try not to be too repetitive and say it over and over again. So if at any point you're thinking, that doesn't look right, it's probably because it needs to be thinner and pointier. Next we build up the eyebrows a little and push them down for that manic angry eye look, and give him cheekbones that will make a Calvin Klein model jealous. And then there we go, making the nose a bit thinner and pointier. Time to work on the smile. It's got to be creepy wide and not emoji wide. And then I push in little pre-baked clay baubles for the eyeballs. Not going in too deep as he needs that sort of manic bug-eyed look. After that we take tiny little strips of clay and shape the eyelids and eye bags to sit them in. I use pre-baked clay for the eyes because you need them to keep their shape. I've lost count of the number of times I've dunked some clay in and made a perfect eyeball, only to smush it to bits with my ham-fisted use of this little silicone rubber tool thingy. So a pre-baked eyeball keeps its shape and is a lot easier to work around. Next we make the chin thinner and pointier, and then a bit more thinner and pointier, and draw in the teeth with a needle. He's such a toothy grinner in the comic book, and I always like the iconic pictures of the Joker with a white face and yellow teeth. So being a villain obviously plays havoc with your dental care. More thinnering, and then we move on to the body and the hair. Simple positioning for the shoulders and laying the foundations for his marvellous purple overcoat, then we lay little strips of clay on his head to give his hair some direction. In The Killing Joke, the Joker has brilliant late 80s hair with a deep side parting and a real curl to it. There's a famous picture of him running his hands through it and laughing. There's a real mix of bittersweet humour and despair. I'm sure I don't need to tell you that Brian Bolland's art, together with Alan Moore's beautifully dark and ambiguous storyline, remains the definitive Joker storyline to this day. Christopher Nolan admits that Heath Ledger's performance as a man unhinged by reality, and his multiple choice versions of how he got those scars, came directly from this story. So too does Joaquin Phoenix and Todd Phillips' The Joker with his failed career as a stand-up comedian, and Tim Burton borrowed Jack Nicholson's dip in the chemical factory from The Killing Joke as well. The book is only 48 pages long, but it's had a huge impact on one of the most complex and interesting characters in the comic book world. So, obviously I'm doing my best here not to ruin it. Anyway, here I'm twirling little curls of grey hair and bunching them up over his forehead and at the nape of his neck. They're very fragile and I should totally have done them at the end, but I think they add the right sort of frenzy to his style. On top of that we draw in some curls into the hair with a ball shaper, and then we can move on to the big lapel jacket and the funny sort of string thingy he wears instead of a tie. I really like the upturned collar on his coat. In fact, I remember wanting a coat like this when I was about 14 or so, and listening to metal music in my bedroom while reading comic books, and thinking that the world didn't really understand me. And with the final bits in place and a last quick bake, we're ready to start painting. First comes a base coat of black on almost everything. This would have been a lot quicker and easier if I'd had some black spray primer, but I didn't, so I had to do it the old-fashioned way instead. As I paint up all the black, I'm doing a much more low-rent version of a zenithal prime on here. So I'm colouring everything with a black base, like his hair and jacket, with a full layer of black. Then on his face, I don't want to cover everything because a lot of it will end up white, so I focus on the black on all the shadow areas like under his brows and nose and under the chin. Was all of this worth it? Did this make a big difference to the end result? No, I don't think it did. But I did it anyway, so now you know you don't have to. And then with all that done, I started with the coat. Normally I'd do the face first. The painting experts recommend you paint from the inside out, so that means doing the mouth, then teeth, then skin, then lips, and so on. But to be honest, I was a little intimidated by the white skin and face, so I wimped out and did the coat first. Plus it's such a lovely deep, rich red purple colour. I put a base coat layer of a darker colour and then feather in some highlights just where the light will catch the lapels and the shoulders. While I do this, I put in faint scratches and marks because I picture the coat as being leather, quite old and well worn, and this gives that effect nicely. Or at least it will, I hope, when it's done. Let's be honest, the original colours from the comic book art use maybe 1 or 2 shades of colour at most for the whole coat, so we're having to wing it a little bit here. Next is a bit of yellow for his fancy waistcoat, which takes a couple of coats because of the black underneath it. But it's worth it for that comic book style. The black lining and separating colours gives it a good comic book feel, just like the original art. And then we're on to the face. I start with a mid-grey, knocking back some of the black and smoothing it all together. I still want the contrast to be really stark. It's a comic book character after all. So this was a long and very tedious process of building up the shade, going back and then fixing it a bit, fixing it too far and adding a bit more darker grey, and then just passing back and forth for ages and ages and ages and ages and ages and ages and ages until it sort of looked right. You're lucky I didn't post the whole footage of this because it is literally as boring as watching paint dry. As you can see, we gradually get higher and higher with the grey until we're at full white for the final highlight. Now normally highlighting would be limited to a few strokes here and there, but his whole blooming face is supposed to be white, so it goes on a lot more of it than I expected it to. And then we do the green hair, and like Heath Ledger and the original comic book, I want most of this to stay black, but with green as the highlight colours. It lends him that darker, moodier look that I'm going for, and it means I get to dry brush some of it, so it doesn't actually take that long. Bonus. A second pass with a lighter green for the front and top, and then I can touch up his teeth with a nice yellow grey. Just like the waistcoat and creases on his face, I want each tooth to be lined in black, and I think this works pretty well. You can see I've added the whites of his eyes too, which I can't find the video for, so you just have to trust me when I say that I did it and not someone else. And then I take my tiniest brush and put in black circles for his eyes. The pupils need to be quite small so that he looks suitably manic, and then I drop blue in the middle and a final black pupil, and a white dot for the highlight. That just leaves a base, which I sculpted a little spades icon onto the front of and painted in black, and then we can call this one done. Thanks so much for watching, and if you like this sort of thing then please do subscribe, like, and let me know what other stuff you'd like me to make in the comments. I'm posting videos at least once a week, so hit the notifications thingy too so you can catch up on the next one. And normally I'd put on my best, by which I mean terrible, movie trailer voice about here, but this one already has a trailer, so we'll leave the last word to Batman.
I want to talk.